Welcome. We're going to fix the mic here. There we go. Much better. Welcome to the NAP, the no answer period, where we cover the question period prefaced by a review of the far left evil that has beset our land and the events that surround it. The NAP precedes question period by 45 minutes, and we'll cover the lower house until the government decides to stop showing up. We also keep score, described in the description below, some of which we had to cut out because, well, there's too much of a description as to what happened in Parliament yesterday. I'd like to thank my followers and subscribers for doing so, and if you're new, please like, thumbs up, share, follow, subscribe, all that jazz. The chat is up. Please feel free to ask anything, and comments drive the algorithm when I'm not driving it down with my forbidden words. Well, let's get into the intro, and then we will be right back and get into the show.
Liberal catch and release. 1 year later, federal crown prosecutors said they are staying charges against 2 traffickers because they're following their federal policy playbook. So my question is this: what federal policy could possibly justify this decision?
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Speech yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech, and not only did they see it in that speech today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future. They know that the youth.
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
all of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that is built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Know that this government has their back and we will continue to do this. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Deficits are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been
Canada's
made.
economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
Move on, man. Move on.
Point of order. There was some very unparliamentary language that we heard today.
Sets us up well for the new world order.
Production sites licensed by the federal government under Justin Trudeau's leadership. It's quiet here today, but on an ordinary day in nice weather, you'll see people hanging out. The drug dealers usually park themselves down the street, going.
The honourable member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, a peer-reviewed study published yesterday in a world-leading scientific journal found that closing a supervised drug consumption site
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
My comment by telling the truth that the answer was bovine excrement.
We can control, Mr. Speaker. Here's one thing that member can control. Tell her colleague to stop going to Washington and accuse Canadians of putting up a hissy fit in response to unfair, unjust, costly tariffs on our citizens, on our auto sector, and on our workers in Canada. That member should go over a few seats and say, stop the hissy fit talk.
And we're back. As you can see, we had a bit of stuttering there going on with the stream, so I had to bring down the bit rate again. All right, well, before we get into the show, we always like to cover what's going on in Parliament. Excuse me. Oh, I need a cough button. All right. Well, as you can see, nothing's happening yet. And of course, as of yesterday, the Standing Committee on Health, I guess the meeting was suspended and still outstanding, which means they would need to sit again today, or will they? We don't know. Oh, site just refreshed because the lower house has just started to sit at 10:30. Very good. And we like to start the show with a bit of comedy, so let's go straight into this dark bit of comedy here.
Would you like to choose the carbon offset option for your execution? Sorry? Execution by electric chair takes a lot of energy. It amounts to an emission of about 1 carbon ton. By ticking that box, you can offset the emissions.
Oh, well, what do most people do?
Most people do it.
Yeah, most people do it. It's only an extra $10.
You want me to pay for my own execution?
And help create a more sustainable future.
Sustainable future? You're about to kill me.
Well, for other people.
What do I get?
We plant a tree.
What kind of tree?
Do you know what kind of?
Nice one. Oh, definitely nice one.
Yeah, they don't skimp. It's a good, you'd like it. Would you say that you're concerned about your planet in general?
Not at this very moment.
If you were, we do offer... Caleb, could you bring in the... We do offer another alternative. It's a wind-powered execution.
Much greener option.
Then why don't you use it all the time?
Oh, well, it has its pros and cons.
It's definitely greener, but it takes a bit longer.
How long?
14 days.
14 days?
15 tops.
We give you books and magazines to pass the time.
Free Bible.
But it's definitely greener.
Oh, yeah, incredibly green way to go.
Definitely, yeah.
What?
It's so sad. It's barely funny, but it's sad and almost true at the same time, because the mental gymnastics that the green meanies need to do within their brains has to be to the point where you just dismiss the sanctity of human life in order to push your ideology. Because as we can see, their green policies are destroying the nation. For what? For a false narrative. In fact, there was another study that was released recently showing that the IPCC data, which the government relies on, is completely fraudulent because it's based on assumptions. It always has been based on climate modeling that has never been proved correct once, not once. But let's listen to something a little funnier this time, I guess.
James Bond has retired. Who is our new 007?
Your Majesty, we've selected someone who represents modern London.
Modern London.
Bond. Sing Bond.
So, M.
So the next Bond could be from Rantham. All right. So we have our stories. Of course, our videos also put up on X and Rumble and YouTube. Now let's get into the order paper for the day. This paper is published every single day for the Parliament. And It lists everything that is going to be happening in Parliament that day and in the coming days, and of course, what questions have been asked, and the notice paper, report of stage bills. And anytime a member of Parliament asks a question that requires a written response, it's tracked in this as well. So if you're wondering if your MP has been looking into things that you're concerned about, this would be the place to go. All right. Well, before we get into the other stories of the day, I guess this event has just been reported. From Table Salt, new Old Dominion University students deleted an armed Islamic attacker with their bare hands. Apparently, they may have beaten him to death. So let's listen to this report here.
How was he deceased?
There were students who were in that room that subdued him and rendered him no longer alive. I don't know how else to say it, but they basically were able to terminate the threat.
So he was not shot?
He was not shot.
He shot 3 people?
Correct. We have information that he shot 3 people.
The one that went to Virginia. How was he deceased?
Mr. Speaker, the Ali al-Salam military base was targeted by Iranian missiles on March 1st. This military
All right, so they just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. We know the Liberals work in darkness. They do everything in darkness. Now, this camp, Ali al-Salam, Canadian forces have been operating there for quite a while. It's not the first time they come under attack. Well, they're working in an environment that is surrounded by Islamic terrorists. So I think the most notable last time this camp was attacked, it came under mortar fire back when the current CDS was there as a commander of the Canadian contingent. And when they come under mortar fire, she ran. She grabbed the rug that she bought at the bazaar. She ran for an American helicopter, tried to get on to leave the area. And the flight engineer on that chopper had to say, "Get the hell off my chopper, ma'am. You have a command here and you should be at your post." Now, of course, the Canadian Armed Forces denied this actually happened, but, I heard this story from members of my own squadron when they came back because they were there at the time. So anyway, it's not surprising that these Liberals have no respect for the military, have no respect for the Canadian taxpayer, and they've proven this over and over again in their policies and in their actions like this. Now, let's listen to this weak sauce prime minister repeatedly say, this guy says more than Trudeau used to say. But anyway, let's listen to this loser.
If you can confirm in English if this attack happened, and why you didn't inform Canadian before?
And I'd just like to say that he's doing this announcement about northern investment for our northern sovereignty, and he's got people in the back there wearing white camo polyester overalls. These things are usually worn. Sorry. Are we back? Terribly sorry about this. Terribly sorry. Really sorry about this. We have streaming issues constantly. We've brought the bit route down as much as we can. We're going to bring it down some more. It's a pitfall of using cheap equipment and living next to a wing that uses most of the data stream in our area. It's very hard to stream here.
Well, I mean, I'm not the only spokesperson for the government, but I'll just confirm that Canadian forces are, the members of the Canadian forces are all safe and sound. I reinforce, as I said in French, what you know, which is that we are not engaged in these actions of the U.S. and Israel. We're not engaged in
we're not. What a weak sauce, man. So all these uniforms that are wearing about, they're not uniforms. These are white camel coveralls that you put over your thermal stuff that you're wearing outside. That's why it's big and baggy and it has a lot of room. It's to camouflage you because the stuff, the cold weather gear that our Canadian Armed Forces members wear is based for arboreal camouflage. So when you're in the snow, you put these white camos over top of you. You don't wear them inside like this for show, which of course they do because he's trying to show that, oh, look, I'm all for the military, but you're really not, are you? Because you people decimated the ranks, your DEA policies, and your COVID-19 vaccine mandates that purged 10% of the armed forces and then went on to deny the fact that you actually harmed the armed forces members with your vaccine, ordering them those that are actually harmed and still serving, ordering them to stay silent about their injuries. And of course, Veterans Affairs has also denied the fact that the vaccine caused them any harm. And now that we have a failed vaccine injury support program, you went and injured and killed some of our Canadian Armed Forces members with this fraudulent vaccine. And you still haven't answered. Oh, yes, you did have an answer. That's right. You sealed the vaccine records and harms and injuries for 15 years because you work in darkness. You don't like to know what the hell you're doing, which is why you never told them that Ali al-Salam came under missile attack. Now, of course, Corey Morgan here has a wonderful little picture about it, where you see, as you can see, the debris from the men's room took a direct hit. And if you can't see this, and wonder what all these things are, that's because the Canadian Armed Forces has tampon dispensers in the men's room. Ever since the Liberals instituted their diversity, equity, inclusion, cultural Marxism, and ensuring that there are race-based politics within the Canadian Armed Forces, that's right. You can't join if you're white and Christian, because there's enough of them already, and they have other quotas to meet based on your race, your skin color, and what ideology you follow. So that's why they can't meet their quotas, and that's why they want to bring in people from outside the country, mercenaries to fill the ranks. So they want mercenaries to fill the ranks, because who's going to join an organization that stuffed tampons in the men's room? That's not really a warrior society, is it? Well, let's see. I'm honestly surprised they didn't spin this with more anti-American hate and openly blame the Americans for this. Yes, the Liberals are so anti-American. They even covered up an Iranian attack on our armed forces stationed in Kuwait. That's how crazy they are. This is the Trump derangement syndrome has completely taken over the far left. Well, they were already crazy to start with. Now, Carnage had a duty to inform Canadians about the attack on his soldiers, writes Sean Sargent, retired here, a Prairie veteran at X. Even more so since they even had an emergency debate on the issue within the past week. Contempt of Parliament is defined as the act of blocking the House or any member of Parliament from performing their duties. Pretty safe to say this was him blocking them. He didn't want the negative press. It went against his stance at the time. Penalty for contempt of Parliament is a minimum of 6 months in jail, up to 14 years in jail for perjury, fine of up to $50,000. Wow. It's amazing, eh? Because a politician can be caught doing something unethical and pay what, a $500 fine? Like enriching himself, doing something unethical that could actually cause harm and injury and death to other people, you know? And all he gets is a $500 fine. That's it. Nothing. Absolutely no responsibility upon the politicians for their actions. But, you know, somebody gets in the way of a politician getting to work, or it's deemed that they've done these things here. Wow, $50,000 and 14 years in jail. Makes a contempt fine of the federal court order and collectible, even if Parliament is prorogued. Wow. Removal of parliamentary privileges. I really don't think Mark J. Carney knows how serious this is. He kept quiet on one of his most sacred duties to you, soldiers under his command. Parliament, all to save face. Carney must apologize and resign, but we know he won't. He's too fixated on stealing everything from our treasury to make him and his friends rich. Look at this. Canada launches tens of billions in Arctic military investment. So Mark Carney has announced funds for a forward operating bases and other upgrades to enable the Canadian Armed Forces to defend the Arctic without the help of allies. Where will this $35 billion in investment go? Well, we do know a good chunk of it is going to Iqaluit, which is how he bribed Lori, along with other things that are questionable going on in her life, for her to cross the floor. Yes, they've been pumping all kinds of money up in Iqaluit. Now, mind you, Iqaluit has needed this investment for a long time. But why didn't he do it a decade ago? Oh, that's because they were too busy stealing everything, increasing the debt by more than all other prior governments combined, to the point now where we pay over $10 million per hour in interest debt charges just to keep the creditors at bay, which equals to about a full hospital built and burnt to the ground every month, because of the amount of money that these clowns are printing, borrowing, and spending. Now, they keep calling it investment. It's not investment, it's spending. Spending all the time. And it doesn't matter what they build up there. The environment is so difficult to live in that it needs constant maintenance. After every season, after every winter, you're going to go back in and have to fix everything that was destroyed by the cold. They just don't realize. People don't realize. They don't at all. Now, watch the moment the Ukrainian gold convoy was stopped. Now, why are we watching this? We'll get that into it in a second. Now, the video, armored cash vehicles carrying $40 million or 35 million euros and 9 kilograms of gold. Oh, sorry, that was $40 million and 35 million euros and 9 kilograms of gold through Hungary towards Ukraine. Among those detained was a former Ukrainian intelligence general. This is not an ordinary transfer. Since January alone, over $900 million, 420 million euros, and 146 kilograms of gold have reportedly moved through Hungary toward Ukraine. What's going on in Ukraine? Convoys of cash and gold escorted by intelligence-linked individuals raise serious questions. Hungarian authorities are investigating. Now, those behind this operation must explain exactly what this money was meant to finance. Indeed. Well, now, what's up with the $80 million in cash and gold seized by Hungarian government leaving Ukraine for unknown destination, writes John Smith here, also known as @YonkOJohn on X. They say it somehow involves Carney. And if so, it would somehow involve Freeland. Red-faced and silent isn't a good sign. Now, Julian Assange has Carney in his sights and has made his connection that Carney is involved. Oh, unbelievable. On the heels of Carney lying to Canadians by hiding the attack on our Kuwait base, the hiding frozen soldiers in Alaska, this bastard needs to step down. Frozen soldiers probably talking about the crappy equipment that they went and bought without any proper vetting or investigation. Some of the wasted money on, like, why would you buy a shitload of sleeping bags without first testing them? Right? Well, I mean, the existing sleeping bags that we do have in the military, like made with down, they are fantastic. This double layer system plus a third layer on the inside, and then you put all that in a baby bag, and then you're inside a tent, right, with a little cold pit by the door, and you run a lantern, and a common stove. Sorry, you run a lantern. Just waiting to catch up. There we go. You run a lantern and a Coleman stove. Bob's your uncle. You're living the dream, but you don't have the proper sleeping bag. You're freezing to death. Now, Mark Carney, here writes Tristan Harper. Can you pass me? Oh, sorry. Did I have that thing on? No, I didn't. Well, I thought I had that post there by Julian Assange, and it's basically what that guy said. Well, let's move on here. Can you pass assault? Mark Carney. Oh, it's not that easy here in the Passing Assault Act, which will allow the federal government cabinet to override all civil and criminal laws, annul any government appointed without cause, and pass assault maybe with Indigenous consultation. This is basically a play on words on exactly what is happening in Parliament regarding every single thing that is asked by the government to do. Right? So every time they bring up the fact that migrants are running out of control in Canada, the ones that they have let in that are criminals, that they are not removing. And they will say, why don't you do your job and remove them? And then they will come up, well, it's not that easy. You know, you need to pass these acts that we have in law right now, right? And you're just keeping us from passing these acts that would allow us to do our jobs. But the problem is, this wasn't a problem before you were in government. There are existing laws that allow you to actually kick them out. You have the ability as ministers in these departments to get these things done. And say, constantly prevaricating about, oh, well, it might have impinged a law. Well, apparently that has never stopped you from violating the law in the past, especially the biggest one of all, which was violating Canadian civil rights and illegally invoking the Emergencies Act, of which the federal court has found you guilty of doing twice now. So you don't have a problem whatsoever with ignoring the law and asking for forgiveness later. Unless, of course, it has to do with removing people from the country that are going to be your potential future voters, shall we say, which is why you seem to support terrorism rather than the Canadians who are suffering from the violence and misery these migrants are causing that you brought into the country. Occam's razor, folks. It's pretty obvious what the truth is. Now, Holly Doan says, it's no surprise that Canadians are challenged with buying homes right now when there is a war in the Middle East. Now, this is a quotation from Clownface here, our Minister of Housing, Gregor Robertson, of which, of course, we have no idea what his financial portfolio is. Now, we know he's invested in tons of housing himself out in BC and Vancouver, which was just given over to the natives. I'm wondering how he feels about that. But anyway, we don't know. David over at Moose on a Loose has obviously sent requests over to his office. Like, can you tell us what you're invested in? He's never gotten a response whatsoever. So we don't know, like all these bills that he's pushing forward, how rich is it making him? We don't know because these people operate in darkness. Now, the fact that he brought up the oh, well, the war in Iran, that's causing housing to cost too much here in Canada. Are you clowns done with your lies yet? Are you just, why not just blame Harper? Oh, it's Harper's fault that housing costs so much today. It's the Conservatives' fault. Hang on a sec. There we go. It's the Conservatives' fault for not passing our authoritarian bills. It's the Conservatives' fault for this. It's the Conservatives' fault for that. It's not our fault. It's never our fault. No, we haven't been in power since 2015. We're a new government. Don't you know? What a lying sack of poop. Now, Kristen Van Gyn, she was at Parliament Hill yesterday because they were protesting the upcoming Bill C9. Now, if the charters automatically stopped unconstitutional laws, my entire profession wouldn't exist, she writes. As the director of Civil Liberties Charity, I am, in fact, one of the leading critics of C9. So, yes, I read it. Now, this is in response to somebody that was obviously giving a response to her. Oh, you should read what's in the charter, right? It's going to protect us. Yeah, like it protected us during the COVIDity stupidity. No, it did not. Not under this government. This government has proven, this Liberal government has proven that it will violate civil rights of Canadians and has promised to do it again and use violence again because it refuses to acknowledge the ruling of the federal court. When it refuses to acknowledge a ruling of the federal court that they illegally invoked Emergencies Act, illegally confiscated people's money, illegally used violence to suppress peaceful protests. When they refuse to acknowledge they did that, that means they promised to do it again. Just because they're not talking about it doesn't mean they're not going to do it again. They're going to do it again. Think of the worst thing that Liberals could do, they will do it. Because they've proven so far that they are slowly marching Canada into an authoritarian shithole. Andrew Lawton writes, let's try to get this name of the Bill C9 changed from Combating Hate Act to a more appropriate name, the Combating Freedom of Expression Act. It's funny, but it's worth listening to again.
Mr. Lawton. This is pursuant to Standing Order 116-2A. I seek unanimous consent to rename the bill the Combating Freedom of Expression Act.
Yes.
No amendments. Thank you.
Second that.
Shall the short title carry?
Yes.
Shall the short title carry, Mr. Clerk?
Yes. Votes on the short title. Madame Natenzio.
Yes.
Mr. Housefather.
Yes.
Madame Dillon. Yes. Mr. Chang. Mr. Brock.
I prefer Mr. Lawton's short title.
Now, of course, it did pass, right? But it's the fact that it would have been hilarious because it's true. Now, if the Liberals get those 2 seats that they just vacated in the by-elections, because it looks like they probably will, because they're almost like solid guarantee Liberal seats. And then when they get the majority, they will prorogue for a day and then come back and reset all the committees. And then all the committees will have a Liberal majority in them. And therefore, any bills they put through will just get pushed through with no changes whatsoever. They will have complete authority. And I've mentioned this before. What they will do is they will give citizenship to the plus 5 million migrants that they've allowed in whose visas are going to expire so they can become the natural ruling party forever. Now, Bill C9, the Combating Hate Act, will be voted on by members of the Parliament today or tomorrow in Parliament. So I'm wondering, they're off next week. Typically, a lot of the members don't even show up in the House. You'll see the question period is relatively pretty empty every Friday when they have the next week off. And even when they don't have the next week off, it's empty because a lot of them are flying out, going back to their constituencies. So I'm wondering if many of them are actually going to fly out today or stick around for the vote. Now, mind you, they don't really need to stick around for the vote. They can do it electronically on the road now. So anyway, call your MP today to stop this bill before it's too late. Now, if it doesn't pass today, we got all next week to keep bugging them. But when this passes, this is the start of the end, folks. This is the start when people are going to be showing up at your door and when they're not. because somebody got offended. Somebody got offended because of something you said, something you wrote, something you posted, and they will come to arrest you because you offended somebody. And you will ask, well, who complained? And you won't be able to know either. It'll be a star chamber thing. And then you'll ask, well, where's your warrant? They'll say, no, we don't need a warrant to arrest you. We just need our own objective opinion on the fact that we think you did something wrong. We think you did a thought crime, so we're going to arrest you. That's where we're headed. You want to see what the future for Canada is? See what's happening to the citizens in the UK right now when they've had over 15,000 arrests last year for people offending someone online for something they wrote or said. And people have been thrown in jail. Instead of real criminals, right? They will throw people in jail for thought crimes. This is where we're headed, Canada. Now, report insurance fraud has skyrocketed because of the government third world immigration plan. Stage accidents went up 400% since 2025. Auto theft fraud is up 317% since 2023. And total insurance fraud is up 141% since 2019, costing taxpayers between $1 and $3 billion annually. So you're wondering why your insurance is going up? Again, the Liberals through mass, unvetted, uncontrolled mass immigration. Now, this is not anything against the migrants. It's not their fault. It's the government. It's the Liberals who brought them in unvetted. Just open the gates. And they say, oh, we review all the files. That's impossible. It's a mathematical impossibility. Given the amount of people that they have in the ministry and at CBSA, they would have spent 10 seconds per person working 24/7. Which is an impossibility. There's no way you could review files in an amount of time. There's no way a human being can work that long. So they created this problem on purpose. It's brought up repeatedly in Parliament that this destruction of our social system in Canada was caused by the Liberals, and they did it on purpose. Now, of course, we are paying for it through the freaking nose and everything. Garnet Genis writes, I wouldn't describe the situation as being at all surprising. A year into Mark Carney's tenure, we continue to see job chaos. Here it writes, Canada reports surprising job losses. Surprising? Oh, 83,900 jobs in February. Government unemployment raises to 6.7%. We knew this was coming. We knew. Now, here's the crazy woman. Really, the bruising. But of course, Liberals assert the tax is needed because it will save the planet from climate change. What tax is that? Well, of course, the industrial carbon tax on food production. They keep saying tax doesn't increase food costs. This person is a crazy woman. Listen to her.
Go ahead. The studies show that the industrial carbon price adds zero to the cost of food. So if they want to speak about taxes, though, I can point out that on this side of the house, what did we do? We cut them. If they want.
Now, if you listen to this clown in committee, she talks the same way in committee like she does in the House, constantly trying to gaslight, not actually providing any evidence. Right, it's one of these people that's completely brainwashed into the green scam that they just keep repeating slogans but never actually provide any facts. Crazy woman. Liberals want to exempt emails and text messages from across the Access to Information Act. Now, we covered this before, a couple of weeks ago when they brought this up. They want to hide everything. Again, it's about the government hiding absolutely everything. Now, before we get into the next story here, I just want to refresh everyone on the fact we did do a video on the wind farm cronyism out east. So there was a bit of a review on that yesterday. So let's listen to that.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberals handed out a $200 million below-market value loan to a company to build a wind farm in Nova Scotia. It turns out that the chair of the company is the former leader of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, and 3 of the directors are close family members of former Liberal MPs. So given that, Are we to believe that it is just a coincidence that this cabal of Liberal insiders received this $200 million sweetheart loan?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I know the member opposite likes to think about cabals and conspiracies. Maybe he should talk to the Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia, who stood beside us and said this was one of the best projects he's ever seen, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Honourable Member for St. Albert, Sturgeon River.
Mr. Speaker, we're talking about a $200 million sweetheart loan to Liberal insiders. Canadians deserve to know that their tax dollars are not being handed out on the basis of political connections to this government. So, if in fact everything is above board, the Liberals should have no trouble releasing all of the documents and all of the terms of the loan. Will they?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what this is a large megawatt wind farm that's producing thousands of jobs in Ontario. The I renewal, it's why the Scotia stood beside it and said it was a great project, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Scandal after scandal, Mr. Speaker. Things are looking pretty great for Liberal wind farms. This week, we learned that the Liberals gave a $205 million loan at below market rates, as well as $150 million in subsidies for a Liberal wind farm in Nova Scotia. And to be a member of the board, you need to be a former Liberal member or a member of the Liberal family. Without exception. Mr. Speaker, why does the Liberal family get these subsidies and sweetheart deals? All of this paid for by Canadians.
The Honourable Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, 3 times with gusto, I guess. It doesn't change the answer. It doesn't change the answer. There's no conspiracy here. The Conservative Premier of Nova Scotia said this was one of the best projects he's ever seen. This is good for the people of Nova Scotia, and it's good for the people of Canada, Mr. Speaker.
So as you can see, typical every single time, they just keep repeating the same answer over and over again, never actually getting to the nub of what is actually being asked. Because that's how they do stuff. They waste your money, they give it to their friends and their cronies, and then they don't answer questions in Parliament. And now, of course, they will have full control of the committees, at least with the Bloc having the deciding vote in some of the committees. Some decisions have gone the way of reality. But unfortunately, the Bloc is also a they're even more far left than the NDP in some ways. They are far left, batshit crazy, just as much as the Liberals and the NDP. So it's not surprising that in many ways they vote in the same direction as the Liberals, which is why they are voting with the Liberals for Bill C9 to take away your freedom of expression, especially when it comes to faith or anything else. So you will not find any help whatsoever from the Bloc if you're living in Quebec at all. Now here, Sam Cooper writes, exclusive, China owns Canada's only antimony mine, holding Canada's trump card. Well, what is antimony? Well, let's look it up here. For economic and strategic importance, antimony is designated as a critical mineral by many countries, including Canada and the U.S., due to its importance in defense and energy. Global production is highly concentrated, with China producing approximately 80% of the world's supply. Now, of course, it looks like they also control Canada's supply, thanks to the Liberals, because they have a security arrangement with the Chinese. Yes, even though China is our enemy. But they are friends to the Liberals because they are ideologically compatible. Communists always are. And we're almost at 1:15, so the House should be starting any second now. Let's see. The Reclamaire writes, in 2021, after receiving warnings about possible myocarditis from COVID vax, the Canadian government administered 20 million more shots before warning the public. Yes, we know. I know this. Most people don't, though. This adds to Blacklock's story from the same time, right? And he's got a bit of a thread here. He goes, Health Canada has very strict rules to follow regarding adverse events. Max 15-day reporting of new cases set to action signals. Any signal is sufficient for Health Canada to take action, but they never did. Canada started COVID vaccination here. Boop, you can see it. And look at these numbers rising. Canada had its first myocarditis event from the COVID-19 vaccine soon after December 4th in 2020. Then February 2021, Health Canada received reports from Israel regarding the vaccine signals, specifically myocarditis and pericarditis, diseases of the heart. And then here in March 2021, Canada attended the International Medical Conference in part to discuss the myocarditis events from the COVID vaccination. And on May 24, 2021, Justin Trudeau and Dr. Theresa Tam appeared together on television to assure Canadians that COVID vax was safe and effective. Yes, and then of course here we are. It wasn't until June 2021 that Canada started warning about possible myocarditis from the COVID vaccine. And Health Canada already had 800 cases in its database. 800 cases. Imagine that. 6 months after Canada's first case, at least 20 million shots had been administered without warning. They did this on purpose. All right. Let's go to the House and make sure we're not missing the start of the show. Well, their show. There we go. That would be statements by members. So let's bring that off to the side here. We'll keep a view on that. Let's get back to the reclamaire. So compare this data of the RotaShield, a vaccine withdrawal from use after just 15 reports of these adverse events. Now, Health Canada had 800 reports of myocarditis from COVID vax. But this one here, they pulled that vaccine after 15 reports. But here, they just let it ride, let it roll, let the good times roll. For Big Pharma, that is. The data comes directly from the Canadian government's own parliamentary record tabled in the House of Commons on March 11th, 2026. No wonder Mark Carney decided to seal all the vaccine harms and injury and death reports for 15 years, because he knew that they were injuring and killing Canadians on purpose. I took the 31,659 adverse events, both foreign and domestic, and created a website with statistics at the timeline, and you can download the raw data. He posts right here. Let's give this a bit of a repost. Now, the statements by members are still going on. Now, Nicholas Hilcher, MPH, writes, COVID-19 mRNA injections can cause sudden adult death syndrome, SADS, years after injection by permanently damaging the heart with lethal micro scars. So when they say pericarditis, it's not the standard pericarditis or myocarditis health events that happen where part of the muscle is damaged, right? No, these damages are throughout the entire muscle at the microcellular version, which is how they describes it here in this video. And which is why people are just dropping dead. They're dropping dead because their hearts have been harmed. Now, they kept pushing the lie that, oh, you can live a fruitful life with heart damage. No, the reality is, once your heart is damaged, you cannot repair it unless you get a new heart. There's no coming back from the heart damage caused by the COVID-19 vaccine to those that it injured. Among the many list of adverse events that can happen. I'm sorry, folks, but you were lied to. We tried to warn you, but instead you chose to believe the Liberals, who are now heading towards a majority, and guaranteed they will pull this poop again. So it looks like the Parliament is starting. Let's bring that up. So do that.
Foothills. February's job numbers are crushing. 108,000 full-time jobs lost, the largest collapse in full-time employment since 2020, since COVID. Youth unemployment is more than 14%. Canada now has the second highest unemployment and the only shrinking economy in the G7. Let's be clear, it's because of Liberal policies the private sector is hemorrhaging jobs, making the affordability crisis more acute. Will the Liberals admit Conservatives were right, scrap their carbon and fuel taxes that are killing Canadian jobs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Finance.
Canadians all across this country know that we were thrust into a trade war not of our choosing. Our government is doing everything in its power, using every lever at our disposal to support the Canadian economy and insulate it from further shocks that are, again, beyond our control. What we are doing is diversifying trade. While the Leader of the Opposition was trotting around London, giving speeches on free markets, trying to impress Liz Truss, our Prime Minister was signing tens of billions of dollars in new trade deals to create more opportunities for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
The numbers don't lie. The levers that the Liberals are pulling are obviously wrong. Right. 73,000 private sector jobs lost, youth unemployment at more than 14%. It is clear that young Canadians are being locked into the workforce, can't afford housing, and can't afford food while the Prime Minister jet sets to cocktail parties with global elites. Will the Liberals admit that their policies and fiscal plan has failed? Will they adopt the Conservative Youth Jobs Plan that will give Canadian youth hope to build a future here at home?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Finance.
Will never adopt a Conservative plan because they don't have a plan.
That's right.
They don't propose anything that works on behalf of Canadians that will deliver results for them. Our plan is the plan that we're following. Right. That's the plan that Canadians voted for. That's the plan that's working to create jobs for Canadians. And yes, there's choppy waters. We're in a trade war that was not of our choosing, but we're using every lever at our disposal to ensure that Canadians can get ahead.
Hear, hear.
We've offered affordability measures and are signing tens of billions of dollars of new trade agreements to create opportunities for all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
Well, the Prime Minister travels the world promoting Brookfield's interests like he's their PM, portfolio manager. Here at home, shocking is the only way to describe this morning's job numbers. 84,000 Canadians lost their jobs in February. 108,000 jobs were lost in full-time work, while private sector employment fell by 73,000. Employment mostly fell among men aged 25 to 54, the core working age group, and young people between the ages of 15 and 24. Why can't the Liberals finally admit everything they're doing is an illusion and it's failing Canadian families and young people?
The Honourable Minister for International Trade.
Wait. Mr. Speaker, our overseas efforts are delivering concrete results. Last week in India, we secured a $2.6 billion uranium deal. This is not about the billions, it's about the 90,000 plus nuclear workers in Ontario that it's powering. In Australia, the Prime Minister secured a commitment of $10 billion to build major projects across this country. And VistaJet, based in the Gulf, recently placed an order for 40 Canadian-made planes valued over $1 billion. This is about the thousands of workers producing the world-class goods that the world is buying. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Barrie South Innisfil.
Meanwhile, Mr. Speaker, here at home, our people want to work. They want to produce and they want to provide for their families. Young people want a family and a home for their kids to grow up in. And because of the last 11 years of Liberal failures, a generation has lost hope that that will ever happen. Today's job numbers are a national crisis. Maybe the Prime Minister can focus once not on his Brookfield interests abroad, but what's happening here at home and work with Conservatives to solving this job crisis impacting Canadian families and our young people.
The Honourable Secretary of State for the Canada Regulations and Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, while their leader tours Europe trying to reboot his image for the fourth time, our Prime Minister just returned from Indo-Pacific, signing trade deals with world leaders. Let's talk about $2.6 billion in uranium for Saskatchewan. Wow. Premier Mo certainly supported it. We didn't hear a word from any Saskatchewan MP on that side. No. On this side of the House, we're serious about building the strongest economy in the G7. It's time for that leader, that party, to stop the rhetoric, stop the obstruction, help us build Canada strong. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse, Les Étrements-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, the February's job report is concerning. In just 1 month, this government has seen 108,000 full-time jobs lost. This is our worst decline since the 2020 pandemic. While our G7 partners are moving forward, Canada is the only economy that is falling behind. We're still waiting for the results this government promised Canadians. The Liberals' economic policy is a failure. Can they stop punishing job creators? And can they eliminate the taxes and bureaucracy that are destroying jobs in Canada? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister. Mr. Speaker, of course, the jobs result of the last couple of months are negative, and we're aware of this. Why? Why are we here? There is a trade war with our American neighbors. That's something our Conservative friends across the way have a hard time understanding, because it's difficult to send our exports to Canada. Businesses will not invest, and that's the heart of the problem, not Canadian taxes, American tariffs. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis-Lévis. Businesses don't invest because there's no confidence. Young people are victims of the government's economic incompetence. In February, youth unemployment climbed to over 14%. In Quebec, 57,000 jobs disappeared in just 1 month. If young people don't have jobs, it's because Liberal policies aren't working. While the Liberals pat themselves on the back, our young people are wondering how they're going to pay the rent. Will the government stop denying the obvious, listen to the Conservatives, and implement our plan? We give them all of our ideas. Why don't they implement them? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Implementing the Conservative plan. But what plan? There is no plan, because for the Conservatives, everything has to do with the industrial carbon tax. That's it. That's all. Come on. We announced an industrial policy for defense, a defense industrial policy that is of great deal of interest on the part of SMEs in Quebec and Canada. We massively invested. The Prime Minister announced investments in the North, in infrastructure. We are currently transforming the Canadian economy. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, at the start of the conflict in Iran, Tehran launched dozens of airstrikes. All were publicly disclosed, except for the one targeting the Canadian military camp in Kuwait, where still the same Ali al-Salem base, which houses the Canadian military camp, also hosted Italian forces. That very day, Italy publicly said so, but not Canada. Canada concealed this strike for 2 weeks. It didn't even mention it during a House debate on the conflict that the government asked for itself. Why is the whole world informing its citizens except for Canada? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I think we should all prioritize the safety and security of our Canadian armed forces and not expose them to unnecessary risk. Now, we have people, courageous, brave men and women who are operating in a war theater where Iran is launching missiles and drones for operational safety reasons. These disclosures cannot be made. The member for Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, the Liberals cited operational security as an excuse for their silence, but we're just asking for the same information that other countries are sharing. It would just make sense to inform the public when Canada is under attack. And people are asking, why did the Prime Minister blindly support Donald Trump? Why is he changing his mind every other day? They don't know why. Canadians don't know why he hides the attack on the armed forces. Does the government realize that this undermines public trust?
Mr.
Speaker, I think the most important thing is for all Canadian Armed Forces members in the region be safe and sound. Our priority as a government and our priority as parliamentarians should be to prioritize the safety and security of our Canadian Armed Forces who are operating in a war theater right now. So, Madam Speaker, for our government, the priority is always to focus foremost on the health and safety of our forces. Mr. Speaker, the war in Iran began when the Prime Minister was away on a trip. After backing Washington, he refused for days to hold a press briefing with the media accompanying him on the tour. Upon his return, he boycotted a debate on the conflict, even though the Liberals had called for it. He refuses to explain his silence regarding the Iranian strike against Canadian troops, and today he's off to Europe again. Does he understand that on an issue as major as the war he supported, he needs to answer questions? Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's been clear. Canada was not consulted, did not participate, and has no intention of participating in offensive strikes against Iran. We support efforts to end the Iranian nuclear program and the decades of state-sponsored terrorism. Canada's priorities are clear. The Prime Minister said civilian infrastructures need to be protected, international law must be respected, and we will defend the safety of Canadians regardless of where they find in the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Calgary-Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, this morning's job numbers are a scathing indictment of this Liberal government's economic performance. 108,000 full-time jobs lost, the largest one-month drop since the beginning of COVID, and youth unemployment is now over 14%. We have the only shrinking economy in the G7, and we have the second highest unemployment. So, will the Liberals accept our Conservative proposals, including our youth jobs plan, and remove the taxes, red tape, and bureaucracies that are killing Canadian jobs?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, as the Honourable Opposition knows, there's a war raging that's affecting prices everywhere. In this chaos, Canada's in a strong position. Why? Because we prepared. We invested in jobs and industries like auto, steel, and aluminum. We made sure to keep life affordable for all Canadians with our food, groceries, and essentials benefit for 12 million Canadians. We're cutting taxes. You know why, Mr. Speaker? We have a plan. Preparing before a crisis is our way. Complaining after a crisis is theirs. Get on board.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Crowfoot.
Mr. Speaker, talk about before the crisis. For 10 years, this Liberal government has passed anti-development laws, run up the national debt, driven down productivity, driven up the cost of living, bloated the bureaucracy, enriched Liberal insiders, and made Canada the only G7 country with a shrinking economy. Today's job numbers are the result of a decade of failure and lost opportunity, and this Liberal Prime Minister is still taxing, spending, and regulating like the last one. So will they commit today to cut taxes and regulations so Canadians can get back to work?
The Honourable Minister of Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation.
Breaking news for the Honourable Member. We cut taxes for 22 million Canadians. Breaking news for this, the Honourable Member. Our food and groceries essential will help 12 million Canadians put food on the table. Breaking news, we have made it easier for first-time home buyers. Breaking news, we are helping families. We are investing in our defense. This is what a plan is like when we knew there was a crisis. We prepared for a crisis. Complaining afterwards with no plan is not helping Canadians.
The Honourable Member Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyondinaga.
February's job numbers send a troubling signal for Canada's economy. More than 100,000 full-time jobs have disappeared. Youth unemployment has climbed above 14%, and our economy is now among the weakest performers in the G7. Young Canadians are trying to start their careers at a time when opportunity is sinking. Mr. Speaker, when will this Liberal government start working with opposition to advance practical solutions, including our youth jobs plan, and to remove taxes and red tape that is making it harder for businesses to create jobs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Finance.
Conservatives live under a rock. We are in a trade war. We have a war raging in the Middle East. Those are not of our choosing. Those global issues and forces, just to explain causality, are not the fault of the federal government. There are factors in the world that are affecting the Canadian economy. We are moving through a period of unprecedented economic turbulence. Canadians don't want politicians to stand up in this House and celebrate job losses for political gain. They want a serious government doing serious work to help them get ahead, and that's what we're doing.
The Honourable Member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington, Tyondinaga.
Mr. Speaker, February's job report demands serious attention. Instead, Canadians are hearing dismissive responses to legitimate concerns. This government's very own data shows that last month's decline in full-time employment was the largest decline outside of COVID since 2009. Canadians were promised strong economic leadership. Mr. Speaker, if this Liberal government can't deliver jobs, growth, or hope for the next generation, why should Canadians have any confidence that their economic plan will work at all?
Honourable Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency.
Mr. Speaker, despite the Conservative rhetoric, look, we know that we're in a trade war. We know our economy has challenges. But last April, Canadians elected a leader with world-class business and economic experience versus a Conservative leader who's never worked one day in the economy. In fact, the only job he's ever created was one for the member of Carleton. So, Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to focus on our economy. We're going to build our economy into the strongest one in the G7. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
The February No Jobs report shows the Liberal policies aren't working for Canadians. 108,000 full-time jobs lost, the largest one-month decline in full-time employment since 2020. Youth unemployment shot up by 14%. We have the only shrinking economy in the G7, and now we have the second highest unemployment. Canadians aren't working because Liberal policies aren't working. When will the Liberals accept Conservative proposals, including our youth jobs plan, and remove taxes and bureaucracies that are killing Canadian jobs?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We are creating high-paying jobs for young people with our investments in housing. Build Canada Homes will invest $13 billion in housing. It will catalyze new methods of construction, new jobs in factories, new jobs from coast to coast to coast, using Canadian materials, Canadian steel, Canadian lumber. Yes, that's trees to keys. And it will get our youth working, and then they can live in those homes.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent at Keweenrack. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, figures are stubborn. In fact, they're very sad. When you look at jobs rates last February, 108,000 Canadians lost their jobs. 108,000 women, men that are looking for work today. That's the truth, Mr. Speaker. This is evidence that after 10 years of Liberal government, Liberal policies do not work well. When will the government be effective in its work? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, we are being effective. We find ourselves in a situation that was created by the U.S. trade policy. American tariffs have put us in this situation. Canadian businesses are having a hard time investing because they have no predictability as to the operational environment, given the uncertainty brought about by the U.S. What we can do is massively invest in infrastructure and reposition our economy in the sector of defense. I see a lot of enthusiasm on the part of SMEs in Quebec. They are looking forward to being able to enter the supply chain in defense. It will work. Easy to accuse the U.S., but the truth is that Liberal taxes and bureaucracy are 100% in the hands of this government. Remember, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister got elected saying that July 21st, it'll be over. There won't be any more tariffs. No more elbows up. We see thumbs up, actually, at the White House. That's the reality. But even worse yet, unemployment is now at 14% among the youth. When young people are already having a hard time getting housing, buying groceries, now they're having a hard time finding work. Is the government aware of the fact that this youth policy just doesn't work? Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, the tariff war with the U.S. is extremely challenging, but we have a plan that works. We are the country that is drawing in the most investments currently, and it's working. The military defense, auto strategy, these strategies are working. It won't happen overnight, but we're moving forward. Canadians believe in this. They continue to support us, and we will do our job for Canada. That's our plan. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, the National Assembly and now the Public Accounts Committee have unanimously agreed. In fact, all parties, including the Liberals, are calling on the government to launch an inquiry into the federal government's IT fiascos. Curam, Phoenix, ArriveCan. Every time Ottawa messes with IT, we end up with aggrieved constituents and massive cost overruns. The House will soon be seized with the committee's unanimous request for an inquiry. But let's move on. Will the government respect these unanimous views and launch a public and independent inquiry? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. 7.7 million seniors receive their benefits in time, in a timely way, no mistakes. Yesterday, we provided a briefing to all members of the opposition that wanted to attend, and they shared all the technical problems. The briefing session actually disclosed all of that. If you have any other problems, further issues, further cases you want to discuss with me, I would be happy to answer your questions. A reminder that you must go through the chair if you use vous in French. The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Mr. Speaker, while the Liberals continue to bury their heads in the sand, 85,000 retirees are still unable to access their old day pensions because of Curam. As for Phoenix, after 10 years of problems, the Civil Servants Union revealed 2 weeks ago that there are still 233,000 cases to be resolved. These are not just statistics. These are people who deserve an end to these fiascos. When will there be a public and independent inquiry? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I already stated, 7.7 million people, seniors, are receiving their benefits in a timely way. The former system was fragile. It was expensive, and maintaining it would have been catastrophic. It would have led to an operational failure where no one would have received benefits. We're working on solutions, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Kenora-Kawatinuk. The February jobs report is dire news for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Canada lost 108,000 full-time jobs in February. This is the largest one-month decline in full-time employment since COVID. Further, we saw 73,000 job losses in the private sector, and youth unemployment shot up to over 14%. Under these Liberals, Canada has the only shrinking economy in the G7 and now the second highest unemployment in the G7 as well. So, Mr. Speaker, when will the Liberals listen to Canadians and the plan that we've put forward to remove taxes and the bureaucracies that are killing jobs in Canada?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Obviously, the jobs data that came out this morning, Mr. Speaker, is unfortunate, but the Conservatives can fixate on month-to-month data. They never mention, or their script never recites, anything on long-term trends. What did we see just a few days ago? An announcement very clear in Bloomberg. My colleague can go look at it. The largest amount of foreign investment that Canada has seen since 2007 secured for this country. That means jobs. That means opportunities for young people in particular. What did we see yesterday? A huge investment in Canada's north. Ports, airports, the construction of the Mackenzie Valley Highway, and the securing of Canada's north. That's how you build Canada.
The Honourable Member for Kenora-Kawatinuk. Mr. Speaker, the difference between the Liberal rhetoric and the realities facing Canadians is stark. Canadians aren't working because Liberal policies aren't working. We have the only shrinking economy in the G7 and now the second highest unemployment in the G7. And to make matters worse, Mr. Speaker, Canada has the highest food price inflation in the G7 on top of it. We are leading in all of the wrong categories. So when will the Liberals remove the taxes and bureaucracies that are killing jobs in Canada and driving up the cost of living?
Hear, hear. Parliamentary Secretary. My colleague is very well read. He will look at the recent reports of the International Monetary Fund that has made clear that Canada stands as an example for the G7 and, in fact, for the entire OECD and beyond. What we have now is an opportunity to engage in serious policy to build up this country. I mentioned the investments in Canada's north yesterday. We have investments in Canada's west. I hope they support that at least. In Canada's east, it's a jobs focus. It's a focus on opportunity because opportunity leads to jobs. That leads to purchasing power. That leads to affordability. That's how we build up this amazing country.
The Honourable Member for Sudbury East, Manitoulin, Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, it's true. We can't control what happens abroad, and we can't make excuses on affordability issues that stem from bad decisions from these Liberals. The Prime Minister continues to go ahead with bad policy like industrial carbon tax and the fuel standard tax that will rise to 17 cents. This applies to every Canadian, especially those who bring us our food driving up the cost of your grocery bill even more. When will these Liberals accept responsibility for what they can control and remove policies that make life more expensive for Canadians?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Finance.
For the Honourable Member, just yesterday our Bill C4 of affordability measures got royal assent in our Senate, which is fantastic news because that means 22 million Canadians will receive a tax cut on their income tax, saving $840 for dual income families. And families that are trying to purchase their first home will save up to $50,000 on homes under $1 million. That's good news for Canadians all across this country. We've also moved forward with the groceries and essentials benefit, which will save families just under $1,900 a month this year. That's
the Honourable Member for Central Newfoundland.
I can't believe what I heard yesterday. The Housing Minister blames skyrocketing housing costs on the war in Iran. Mr. Speaker, everyone knows this affordability crisis is due to 10 years of his government. Canadians are facing the worst food inflation and the only shrinking economy in the G7. Yet this Prime Minister is pushing ahead with his industrial carbon tax and his fuel standard tax that will rise to 17 cents a litre. When will these Liberals stop blaming events abroad and take responsibility for policies at home to make life more affordable for Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Welcome back to the member opposite. The last time we heard from that member, Mr. Speaker, you'll recall we established a permanent national food program for 400,000 children. What was his response? He said it was garbage, Mr. Speaker. How dare he stand up and talk about affordability, and yet when we want to feed children, what does he say? He calls the program garbage. Silliness. That's what the member's all about, Mr. Speaker. Get on board. Support the budget.
Honourable Member. Order. Order. Honourable Member. Order. Honourable Member for Saskatoon South.
Mr. Speaker, Canada has the worst food inflation and the only shrinking economy in the G7. Rising unemployment rates now. Canadians are facing a serious cost of living crisis. Grocery prices are skyrocketing. Paychecks are stretched so thin right now, they don't cover the cost of the basic necessities. Canadians deserve an economy where hard work pays off. When will these Liberals take responsibility for their punishing taxes and their policies?
The Honourable Secretary of State for the Canada Revenue Agency.
Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to fight for Canadians like Paul Britt, Steve McQueen, Pat Allen, Gordie Vale, and Canadians from coast to coast to coast. On this side of the House, we're going to focus on building the strongest economy in the G7. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? We have one of the fastest growing economies in the G7, best net debt to GDP in the G7, one of the best credit ratings in the world. Wages are outpacing inflation. Mr. Speaker, Canadians made a choice. They elected a leader with strong economic and business credentials versus a leader, conservative leader, who has never worked one day in the economy. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Labrador.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that building a stronger economy means opening new markets and bringing investment home. From advancing major projects to attracting billions in investment to creating new demand for Canadian manufacturing, international trade is creating real opportunities for workers here at home, including opportunities in our aviation, aerospace and defence sectors and Canada's seafood sector. Can the Minister of International Trade update the House on how our government's work abroad is delivering investments and jobs for Canadians? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Mr. Speaker, the people of Labrador have sent a strong champion here in Ottawa, and together we're unlocking new global opportunities. In China, we achieved tariff relief on crab and lobster, welcomed by harvesters across Newfoundland and Labrador. In Australia, the Prime Minister secured a $10 billion commitment to build Canada. In the Gulf, VistaJet ordered 40 Canadian-made airplanes worth over $1 billion. Together, these wins are unlocking opportunities and jobs in construction, aerospace, fisheries, seafood, and more. Mr. Speaker, this is how we build Canada strong.
Honourable Member for Lakeland.
Said, quote,
A crisis is a terrible thing to waste. It takes 20 years to get a mine built in Canada, while the U.S. approves mines on federal lands in 28 days under emergency crisis rules. Canada sends rare earths to Beijing that controls 90% of world refining and processing, while C-69 blocks the Ring of Fire with endless regional assessments. Sounds like a waste of a crisis to me. So when will the PM approve the Ring of Fire permits so the private sector can build mines here at home?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I sit on the Natural Resources Committee with the Honourable Member. She knows too well how complicated it is and to do a project like the Ring of Fire, which is actually a multiple project. We're working with the Government of Ontario. We've already started to work with them on the road to access the Ring of Fire because it requires major infrastructure to get to the Ring of Fire. So she should understand that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
All members from Lakeland.
But 4 years after these Liberals' fake critical mineral strategy, not 1 inch of road exists to the Ring of Fire. Nothing on the 2 First Nations-led roads to get it done. Liberals let both foes and allies into Canada's backyard while they drag timelines the rest of the world rejects. The Ring of Fire would connect globally strategic minerals to First Nations, manufacturers, Canadians, and our allies. It's always been true, but with new global conflicts, the world needs Canada's minerals. So for the love of God, when will the Liberals unlock the Ring of Fire for affordability, sovereignty, security, and self-reliance before it's too late?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, I found it very interesting that the member talks about benefits for the First Nation, and what they would like us to do is to bulldoze, ignore the constitutional rights of the First Nation. So I don't understand what they're saying. Help them or follow the rules?
There, good point. Order. The member got a question. The member got a response. The member for Regina Wascana.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Natural Resources promised that Canada would do its part to help release oil reserves in order to stabilize the market. But Canada doesn't have a strategic oil reserve, in part because of Liberal energy policies that have kept Canadian oil and gas in the ground. Conservatives have proposed a strategic oil stockpile that will allow us to fuel our friends abroad, power paychecks at home, and diversify our trade. Will the Liberals adopt our plan so we can be stronger at home while building unbreakable leverage abroad?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, let me explain something to the member opposite. A strategic reserve is for importing countries. We are an exporting country. And guess what? We have centuries worth of reserve in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Excellent job. The Honourable Member for Regina Wascana.
Speaker, we should be and exporting it to the rest of the world. Unfortunately, the Liberals have killed the Northern Gateway Pipeline, the Keystone XL Pipeline, the Energy East Pipeline, all of which could be exporting Canadian oil at $100 a barrel to the rest of the world. How much higher does the price have to go before the Liberals flip-flop again and admit that there is a business case for exporting Canadian oil and gas to the world?
The Honourable Minister of International Trade.
Speaker, Canadian energy is bringing the world to our doorstep. The LNG Canada project alone is linking Canadian natural gas to major energy markets in Asia, to Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, China, and more. These partnerships show that Canada's energy is respected and it creates good jobs here at home. That's exactly what we're doing to get more energies to new export markets around the world.
Member for Red Deer.
Mr. Speaker, Canada should be standing ready to provide our energy both within our borders and to global allies. But a decade of Liberals leave-it-in-the-ground policies have hampered our energy industry, divided our country, and left Canada as the only G7 country without a strategic oil stockpile. Conservatives have a plan for a strategic energy and mineral reserve to control the distribution of our resources around the world. Will the Liberals adopt our Conservative plan so we can be stronger at home and build unbreakable leverage abroad?
Yes.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, let's get a reality check. The Conservative plan, when his leader was in government, they didn't even construct 1 inch, not 1 inch of pipeline to the tidewaters. That's the truth, Mr. Speaker. And you want us to follow that?
Order. I cannot hear the Parliamentary Secretary. Order. I will let the Parliamentary Secretary. Order. Now I'm going to let the Parliamentary restart from the beginning so I can hear the response, and then we will continue.
The facts. You cannot change history. Not 1 inch of pipeline was constructed while he was as the leader of the Conservative Party when they were in government. Not 1 inch to tidewater, Mr. Speaker. Now contrast that to this government where we have record amounts of oil and gas being exported. Look at LNG alone, Mr. Speaker. This is a government that realizes the potential of the prairies, unlike the Alberta MPs that stand up and do nothing. They don't even listen to Daniel Smith. Shame on you.
Hear, hear.
Just a reminder to Parliamentary Secretary, you don't speak directly to member to the speakership. The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Remember the sponsorship scandal? It was a bunch of Liberals running around with money in brown envelopes, handing it out to other Liberal insiders. Well, the Trudeau Liberals said, that's too complicated. We got to go get the money, then you got to get the envelopes, then you got to run around and hand it out. So they created the Green Slush Fund, where they appointed the people to run it, and the people that run it gave it to their own companies. But they got caught. So these so-called new Liberals came up with a new plan. That is to give well below market rate loans to Liberal-controlled companies to pad their profits. No matter how many Liberal governments there are, why is it the same corruption?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's amazing how the Conservative Party is so focused on character assassination. And that's fine. You be concerned about that. We are concerned as a government and the Prime Minister about what's happening in Canada. That's why you see a Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, that's going out, bringing in billions of dollars of investment. That's why we see export opportunities being created. That's why you see billions of dollars of development by this government, by this Prime Minister, because we care about what's happening across Canada.
The Honourable Member for Dufferin-Caledon.
We care what happens in Canada as well. We want development. We just don't want corrupt Liberal development. Because no matter which government it is, they find a way to engage in corrupt practices. Under the Chrétien Liberals, it was the sponsorship scandal, handing out money in envelopes. Under the Trudeau Liberals, it was create a fund run by Liberals who gave the money to their own companies. Now these guys have said, we found a new plan. The so-called new government has a new plan. And this is to give subprime loans to Liberals to pad their profits. Why is every new Liberal government corrupt?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, Minister of Housing and Infrastructure.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians want action, not political games. And that's what our government is delivering. We're creating hundreds of local jobs, supporting communities, and building energy projects, infrastructure projects from coast to coast to coast that power homes, that grow our economy. The Conservatives opposite can keep talking on that side of the House, but we're about action.
The Honourable Member for Montmorency-Charlevoix. Thank you. At a time when families are struggling to pay the bills. It's funny, the Liberals always seem to be able to find hundreds of millions of dollars to help their well-connected friends. It's pretty clear in Canada, if you want to succeed today, you have to be a Brookfield shareholder or be friends with the right people in the Liberal Parliament. The Liberals gave a $206 million loan to well-connected friends for a wind farm in Nova Scotia. But another project that started around the same time and that got its funding from the private sector. So why is it that with the Liberals, it's always Canadians who pay the bill? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, this is a project about clean energy, job creation, and economic growth. It was approved under an arm's length process directed by civil servants who are nonpartisan. Even the Nova Scotia Progressive Conservative government supports this project, and we can see why. It will create hundreds of good jobs for Nova Scotians, and it will strengthen local communities. The honourable member for Montmorency Charlevoix. Mr. Speaker, it's because of news like this that people are losing trust in our institutions. The government tells us that there was no favoritism, but it's actually very clear what happened. Can they say today that no minister, no member of cabinet, no Liberal insider actually took part in this process? Will they make all of the documents linked to this public? We're talking $150 million in federal subsidies and $206 in a sweetheart deal. So Canadians, Quebecers have a right to know. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think maybe what we should do is to give a tangible example for members opposite. When we talk about investing in Canadians, investing in Canada, making Canada a stronger and healthier nation, a good example of that is the major projects, in which we are seeing projects, whether it's LNG in BC, mining in Saskatchewan, the expansion of the Montreal port in Quebec, nuclear energy, $60 billion plus. That's how you invest in Canada, and it's something in which we should all be proud of, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Longueuil-Saint-Hubert.
The honourable member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, our government has a clear mandate to strengthen the viability of the immigration system. I know that the minister is working very hard, cooperating with Quebec. The minister is seeking to support Quebec businesses and to fulfill our mission of building the strongest economy in the G7. We are aiming to reduce the number of temporary residents by the end of 2027, but we also know that Quebec employers need stability. Can the minister inform this House about how our government is going to support the transition of essential workers? The Honourable Minister of Immigration. I'd like to thank the member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. We understand the challenges that businesses and communities are facing, but good news, I am working hard with Quebec on a solution. And today, we have announced a new policy to help transition essential workers into permanent residence so that they can contribute up to an additional year in Quebec. We respect the mandate we received and we are listening to Quebecers. Thank you.
The honourable member for Cambridge.
Mr. Speaker, copper theft is not an innocent crime. When vandals target essential infrastructure like cell towers and power transformers, they're not just breaking the law, they're putting human lives at risk. Copper theft literally leaves people in the dark and stranded when they need help the most. Last year in the Cambridge area alone, there were at least 15 cell service outages linked to these crimes, leaving residents unable to call 911 in an emergency. Do these Liberals realize that copper theft poses a significant threat to public safety and agree that the House of Commons should take action now to protect our communities?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire du ministre de la Sécurité publique.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. It is an important one. The government is concerned about copper theft. It is an essential material for communications. And to ensure that we are protecting telecommunications safety, we are taking strong measures. We have spoken with the RCMP and police services. We are carrying out investigations to prevent these crimes.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the response from the member opposite, but there's more we can be doing. With Bell Canada designating Cambridge as a hotspot for copper theft, it is a real and ongoing risk for people in my community who depend on reliable power and cell service, especially during emergencies. The experts are clear. We need tougher penalties for thieves and vandals, deterrence for repeat offenders, and concrete steps to stop stolen metals from being sold on the black market. Do these Liberals agree that these are common sense measures to stop copper theft? And will they commit to working with Conservatives to put these priorities into law?
L'honorable secrétaire parlementaire du ministre.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind my colleague that Bill C-14 will make sentencing more severe for repeat offenders. And I am prepared to discuss this topic with my colleague to see if we could do more on this specific offense, copper theft.
Mr. Speaker, my private member's bill C-243 is being read for the second time today. It's a common sense bill. It will lessen the anguish of those who've had loved ones stolen from them by murderers. This Conservative bill would reduce annual parole hearings for murderers from every year to every 5 years. Parole hearings are traumatizing. This is a compassionate law supporting the loved ones of murder victims, and it's endorsed by thousands of Canadians and police nationwide. So will these Liberals stand up for victims?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada.
Mr. Speaker, these crimes that are being committed practically on a daily and weekly basis are simply unacceptable. We are committed to be able to put forward robust laws to be able to tackle these issues, and it would be a pleasure for me to sit down with the member and go over his PMB. We will certainly engage in making sure that Canadians are always protected.
Honourable Member for Cardigan.
Mr. Speaker, it's a privilege to rise here today to represent the people of Eastern PEI. And like many residents of Canada, they're frustrated by the trend of increasing banking fees and charges. Our government has taken action by capping non-sufficient fund fees. These can run as high as $50 and impact mostly low-income Canadians. In many cases, these fees add up to hundreds of dollars over the year. Can the Secretary of State for the CRA and financial institutions outline what this measure means for Canadians?
Honourable Secretary of State for the CRA and financial institutions.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my friend from Cardigan for the great work he does in this House and in his riding. We are focused squarely on making life more affordable for Canadians, and that's why yesterday we capped non-sufficient fund fees that banks charge at $10. Wow. Before this measure came into place, fees were as high as $50, and Canadians could be charged multiple times a day. It's not going to happen anymore, and it means that more vulnerable Canadians will save hundreds of dollars per year. We are focused on making life more affordable for Canadians, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Similton, South Okanagan, West Kootenay.
Yesterday, in a discussion about unsafe injection sites, I asked the Liberal Minister of Health the easiest possible question: is injecting fentanyl safe? Instead of a straight answer, the minister laughed and said that research shows continuing to inject fentanyl saves lives. Shameful. Extending addiction doesn't save lives. I will ask again, does the minister believe injecting illegal fentanyl is safe?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me set the record straight. Fentanyl is a controlled substance, and that member knows that physicians use fentanyl in an extremely controlled environment to treat patients. And supervised consumption sites save lives, connect people to services. And this is only the one tool in our many toolboxes that we're working collaboratively with provinces and territories. We're supporting communities to tackle this toxic drug crisis. So it will be wonderful that the Conservative side can join us instead of painting the record dark.
Honourable Member for Vancouver, Kingsway.
In Davos, the Prime Minister declared Canada will live the truth by acting consistently, applying the same standards to allies as well as rivals. Mr. Speaker, Canada has rightly condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine as illegal, yet the Prime Minister is supporting the United States and Israel as they wage an equally illegal war on Iran. This double standard undermines Canada's credibility and erodes the rules-based order we depend on for our security. Why is the Prime Minister walking away from the principles he championed just weeks ago?
The Honourable I need someone to rise. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je pense que
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the Prime Minister has been very clear. International law must be respected. Currently, events are occurring. Mr. Speaker, I don't know if this is about the sanctions that were raised by the Americans on Russian oil. But we, of course, condemn Iran's strikes on civilian infrastructure, especially energy and maritime infrastructure throughout the Middle East. We know that Russia is trying to take advantage of the increase in prices, and Canada is against that. The honourable member for Rosemont-la-Patrie. Hi, Grandma. It's your grandson. I need your help. I just need your PIN. We all know how that story goes. With AI, we see worse and worse banking frauds and scams, and now your bank would tell you that they can't do anything to help you because you voluntarily gave your info to the scammers. Even though you're the victim, it's supposedly your fault, even though banks are supposed to protect us. The Prime Minister used to be a banker. What does he think of this? Should he make banks responsible for these scams? Will he help average people, or will he help his friends at the banks? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Well, I'm very pleased to say that recently we've created a new agency that will combat organized crime, money laundering, and the types of scams that my colleague was talking about. That's all going to be part of the agency to fight financial crime and money laundering.
Next question period. Daily routine of business. Tabling of documents. The Honourable Secretary of State for Canada Revenue Agency and Financial Institutions.
Mr. Speaker, is it an honor? It is an honor to table in both official languages.
All right. So that is the end of question period for another week. And it'll be another week before question period comes back, as the House is off now for a week as the members of Parliament return to their constituents. So let's recap what they covered today. Well, apparently the bad news of the jobs report, which is no surprise to anyone who's been following liberal fuckery, would know that, yes, the jobs are bad because we told you so. So they hammered them with that over and over again. And a nice little dig with the Brookfield by the Conservatives regarding how all these travels that the Prime Minister is doing all around the planet seems to always line up where Brookfield has offices and businesses. It's very interesting. So they went on quite a bit for the jobs report, and we were not disappointed. There were at least 2 questions regarding the old age security. And so now this is the first time they mentioned that 233,000 Canadians are using this system, are being affected by this transfer over. The number yesterday given was 76,000 still waiting for help. He mentioned 85 or 86,000, but still, they rolled out this problem without doing concurrent activity. Like, you don't retire an old system until you know the new system is working. But they did anyway, right? And why did they choose this particular software? Well, that was a pretty good, interesting question because, well, why do they pick that people? Well, we do know, I know, because I know some people, software used for recording aircraft paperwork in the Canadian Armed Forces. Well, when the Liberals came in with their new government, they decided that they were going to change the software and give it to one of their friends. After we spent over a decade trying to bring about this new software throughout the entire government, they were using SAP for everything. And then they forced the aviation industry to use that software to record and certify their work as well in the Royal Canadian Air Force. But now, I guess they got told, no more room in that server. We're not going to buy more memory for that server so that we can bring in new software. Of course, they brought in new software for OAS as well, to give it to their friends to make money for them, right? Which is goes into the mines. Well, what happened to the speed of developing mines? And they're going, well, you can't just build a road at the last minute. And well, we're going to ignore the. Okay. You had 10 years. You had 10 years to continue development, but you decided not to. In fact, you spent 10 years not developing anything. And now you're in a rush and you lied to Canadians saying, we will build things at a speed never seen before. Yeah, we've seen your speed for the past year, and that speed is 0. In some cases, it's backwards. There's no development. under these guys. In fact, we've seen that the only developments that are happening is selling off chunks of Canada to foreign ownership with no local development, actually. So they can bring in their own workers and work that area. There's no jobs for Canadians. They keep promising, they keep talking about all this money and all of these investments and blah, 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 blah. Well, where were they for the past 10 years? You can't believe a thing they're saying. The past 10 years of the record proves the opposite of what they say is going to happen. So you cannot trust them. Oil reserves. This was brought up yesterday. It was brought up a couple of days ago. The Prime Minister mentioned it as well. But these clowns keep selling this lie that you don't need oil reserves. Oh, I have access to oil anytime I want to pump it out of the ground. So why would I need to keep a reserve? Yeah, exactly. Well, what happens when your pumping has an issue? Or what happens when the oil you're importing suddenly stops coming in? And they said, well, when you're an exporter, you don't need to have an oil reserve. Well, actually, we're not an exporter. We are an importer. The East Coast is dependent upon conflict oil. That's right. We pay for conflict oil, and it's being brought into the East Coast for them to use. So we are importing oil. We're not only exporters. We are importers. So if you're importing, you should have a strategic reserve. In fact, even if you're exporting, like the United States has a massive strategic reserve. You want to know why? Because they have a massive military. Global conflict happens, oil stops coming out. Well, then, and you know you're not pumping enough for your own nation, well, then you have to have a strategic reserve. And that's what happens to Canada. Canada does not pump enough oil for its own needs, so it needs import, which means we need a strategic reserve. So don't believe the Liberal lies. Wind farm corruption. I'm glad they brought that up again. And I like the way that CBAC put that in there, making the references to past Liberal corruption. That happens all the time. Every single time these guys get into power, they abuse the power of their office to steal money for themselves and for their friends. And every time they get caught, they get a little slap on the wrist. And then they get paraded back out a decade later as if nothing ever happened, as if none of that corruption ever happened. And you can tell by the Liberals, they won't answer anything. They won't even... We asked, okay, well, if there's no corruption, show us the documents. No. As we know, Liberals work in darkness. They will hide everything from you. Absolutely everything. Copper theft? I could have fucking told you that. Copper thefts have been happening for a long time, and it's only going to get worse the worse the economy gets. So now they're saying, oh, now they took down a cell tower. Imagine that. And now these guys want to build EV charging stations across Canada. Imagine how often those things are going to get ripped apart for their copper. Because you've destroyed the bloody economy. Canada is so wealthy. We have so much wealth in the ground. Not a single Canadian should have to work. We could be living off our own riches. No. These politicians, repeated governments over and over again, have always worked out some kind of way that they only enrich themselves and their friends while keeping the rest of us poor to use as slave labor. But that still wasn't enough, because we still managed to create a middle class. So for the past 10 years, the Liberals have been destroying that middle class, which came out in the jobs report, basically saying, you've destroyed the economy. And they're like, you've never had it so good. Look at all the money, the foreign money that's being invested. No. Actually, there was a report that came out and said there is no foreign investment in Canada because nobody can build anything here with all your net zero green scam policy. And it takes too long to get anything built. And then when you do, if you try to make any money here, the government takes most of it. So why the hell would they develop here? So all these lies of saying, oh, we have all this investment coming in. No. Until they show the documents, until there's actually something coming into the ground, it's a lie. It's a fucking lie. NSF. Oh, yeah, they're going to get a lot of good press over this, when in fact this is another lie as well. Because you think that reducing an NSF charge from $50 to $10 is going to save anybody money who goes to the bank? No. The banks, all they will do is make up that money somewhere else, right? They will just increase another fee to make up the shortfall. And the reality is nobody's writing checks. Hardly anybody's using checks anymore, right? That what people really need break on is the high interest rates on credit cards. Oh, but I guess you wouldn't want to take a page out of Donald Trump's book on that, right? Because he was the first one, I believe he mentioned that about 6-7 months ago, maybe less. But I heard him talking about we need to bring down the interest rates on credit cards because they're just making things worse. And we know Canadians are putting their groceries right now on credit cards because the economy is so horrible. People are so desperate. They're using their credit cards for everything else. And of course, that's coming to an impasse as well. They're all going to end up bankrupt. Mortgages are already defaulting. The economy is slowly coming to a crash. We are basically into a depression. People just haven't realized it yet. So if they really wanted to give a break to somebody, they would have went to the credit card companies that says lower your interest rates by 10%. But no, they won't even do that. They're quite happy with the usury that is afflicting most Canadians. But meanwhile, going to NSF for insufficient funds. But seriously, who isn't capable of making payments now for insufficient funds? Right? They've emptied their bank account now, and they have pre-arranged payments going through, and that's when they get an NSF. Or they're writing checks, but hardly anybody's writing checks anyway. So who's going to make off well from this NSF reduction? They only did it to promote themselves as doing something for Canadians. Oh, look how much money we're going to save. Why was the Canadian going through an NSF in the first place? Why? Because you destroyed the economy. Because you made things so horrible for them that they are now defaulting on their payments because they have no more money. You've taken it all away from them. And harm reduction. This continue. Just watch my video, Drug Den Mama. The Ministry of Death, the Ministry of Health, saying that, oh yeah, it's okay to keep pushing poison into your body. Anybody who has been in a 12-step program or been exposed to it or knows somebody who's in a 12-step program, like let's say you're in Al-Anon, right, and you have somebody in your life that is an alcoholic, or you've seen somebody go through 12-step programs, you will learn the one basic reality that in order for somebody to get sober, first thing they need to do is admit to a higher power and another human being that they have a problem. And then after that, you don't keep feeding the monkey. You go through one day at a time, not feeding that monkey until eventually sobriety becomes a normal part of your life. But what this program does is feeds the monkey. You could admit to another person that you're a higher power, that you have a problem, but you can't move on from there if you keep feeding the monkey. And that's what these liberals want to do. They have no problems continuing to feed the drug monkey that they have allowed Canadians to have. We have over 50,000 Canadians that have died through harm reduction. This is their record of death by the death cult running Canada. Over 100,000 Canadians through MAID, medical assistance in dying, as part of their euthanasia program. These national socialist fascists that they are. We're creeping up on 100,000 people dying, waiting for healthcare because they have destroyed society through uncontrolled mass immigration. And now over 50,000 Canadians dying through harm reduction. So that's 250,000 Canadians, a death toll. So where are you, Conservatives? Why are you not talking about the death toll? Why are you not pointing out that this is a culture of death that the Liberals are saying? You're slowly getting around to it. But meanwhile, you still have stayed quiet on the COVID-19 vaccine harms and deaths. This Liberal government sealed vaccine records for 15 years, trying to hide their crimes against humanity. You should have been all over that. Now you have two by-elections in the GTA area that are probably going to go to Liberals because you Conservatives are too weak, have no balls to go out and start talking about the deaths that these Liberals are doing with their policies and the harms that they have done with the COVID-19 vaccine. They killed people and they lied about it. And they pushed it through fraud. That's murder. But apparently, Conservatives are too weak-minded to go that far. You have no problem sending other people to their death to die for their country, but you don't even have the fucking balls to talk about the deaths that they have caused. Well, thank you all for coming out to the No Answer period. Please join us tomorrow morning for second breakfast at 9 o'clock. And we will be back on the No Answer period I guess 9 days, 10 days from now. Until then, well, I guess we'll be with the outro. And thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate all my watchers, followers, subscribers. And if you're not subscribed, please do so. It's easy. It's cheap. Just hit that thing. And it helps to grow the channel. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Liberal catch and release. 1 year later, federal Crown prosecutors said they're staying charges against 2 traffickers because they're following their federal policy playbook. So my question is this: what federal policy could possibly justify this decision?
If the Conservatives want the truth, we'll tell them the truth.
Speech yesterday from the Prime Minister really freaked these Conservatives out because they saw the ambition in that speech. And not only did they see it in that speech, today, as the Prime Minister stood with the Premier, investing in new nuclear to ensure the jobs of today and the future, they know that the youth...
The only thing that's revolting are those answers.
Speaker, we will take no lessons from these Conservatives. Trust me on that.
The Minister didn't write the Prime Minister's speech yesterday because it wouldn't have bored and depressed to tears.
It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker?
All of those poor students stuck in that room. There he spoke about how they would have to sacrifice more and that it would take time to reverse all of the misery that is built up over the last 10 years. Mr. Speaker, young people want to have homes. They want to have jobs. They want to have hope. They want a budget that is affordable so they can have a life that is affordable. Will the Prime Minister introduce that budget so that Canadians can restore the promise of their country?
And we decide what comes next.
Know that this government has their back and we will continue to do it. There's going to be a powerful statement for the young people of Canada.
Deficits are driving inflation. The more Liberals spend, the more it costs Canadians at the grocery store. 25% of Canadians are using food banks because they can't afford to eat. So when will the Prime Minister finally get his inflationary deficits under control so Canadians can put food on the table?
Mr. Speaker, Conservative members pretend to care about food insecurity, but then they call feeding children garbage.
Mr. Speaker, what's garbage was that answer?
Did the Prime Minister see the ad before it went out?
Hey, of course there are too many people living in poverty in Canada, but there are significant initiatives being put in place by this government.
Being serious means being honest.
Mr. Speaker, the grand reveal has been made.
Canada's economy is in fact growing, Mr. Speaker.
There was some very unparliamentary language that we heard today.
Sets us up well for the new world order.
Production sites licensed by the federal government under Justin Trudeau's leadership. It's quiet here today, but on an ordinary day in nice weather, you'll see people hanging out. The drug dealers usually park themselves down the street, going...
The Honourable Member for Riding Mountain.
Mr. Speaker, a peer-reviewed study published yesterday in a world-leading scientific journal found that closing a supervised drug consumption site led...
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
My comment by telling the truth that the answer was bovine excrement.
Control, Mr. Speaker. Here's one thing that member can control. Tell her colleague to stop going to Washington and accuse Canadians of putting up a hissy fit in response to unfair, unjust, costly tariffs on our citizens, on our auto sector,